right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments Silicon Reviews. Two reviews, two impressions videos this week. It's another one of those. It's like for a long time we didn't have impressions, and now we have all of the impressions. Be that as it may, first review, I have the reviews this week. Petty and Galix have the impressions to break down the workload this week. Anyway, up first is Cuthbert in the Jungle. Right, so where to start with this thing? I suppose we'll start by mentioning that this is another rescue bid from Pixel Games UK, this time hailing from the library of Microdeal. If you've never heard of them, I don't blame you. I never heard of them from before this game either. Turns out they're another UK heavy publisher. Like they were one of these businesses that flourished during the 8-bit microcomputer days, and then apparently they had milder success in the 16-bit era. Faded into oblivion in that time period. And Cuthbert here was apparently their flagship franchise, in that there are 7 games in the Cuthbert series. I cannot say I am any of the other Cuthbert games, but I am familiar with what we got on screen here. Not so much the specific game we got going on here, because I'm sure those who might be old enough to remember the golden age of video games can immediately tell what this is ripping off. And, for the younger people who might be watching this and lack the context, well, so now it behoves me to talk about Pitfall for a little bit, which is fine because Pitfall is a good, if flawed, game. I've always felt this. It's like I played Pitfall on the Atari 2600. It's like not when it was new. I think I've mentioned this before, but the thing about the Atari 2600 is it still had a huge presence and a footprint, even well into like the NES and Super NES days. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, I played Pitfall in its home environment, so to say. And what we got, I believe this is the Commodore 64 version of Pitfall. Can't say I'm personally familiar with this particular version, but and we're playing footage here. Like, who's this from?
It's from Gan's Teeth.
Okay. But I specifically wanted footage of the C64 version because this really puts into context how big of a ripoff Cuthbert in the Jungle is. Because, look at this. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's not 1-to-1, I'd say, but dear God, like, how did Microdeal not get sued here? Like,
the world
this is
may
great.
Never know.
Yeah, or maybe Activision just didn't know. Mm-hmm. Because, in my estimation, granted, I am a layperson who isn't arguing in court or anything like that, but Cuthbert in the Jungle kind of crosses the line beyond legally distinct. Like, there are still differences. I guess the primary difference between the two games is Colbert is shit. You know, but like in real differences, Colbert's sprite is, you know, squatter, but he's got the same color scheme. You got that purple and black ensemble going on, and that Pitfall Harry has going on here. It's like, the scorpion is, I don't know, some kind of monster thing, but still pretty close to the scorpion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything here is amazingly close. Not just in terms of like the graphics, but like the color palettes. And I suppose other like audio visual differences is the biggest one is if we can switch back to Colbert.
Yeah.
The audio is on because the audience needs to hear this.
Yeah, it is on. At least for Cuthbert.
Yeah. Because they made this game more annoying. Because there's this musical ditty that plays when Colbert walks. And like Pitfall Harry made noise as well. But, it wasn't a full-on like song. Or, as close as a song as you could get, I suppose, on the well, no, this is the C64. You could absolutely do music here. I'm thinking of the Atari 2600.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. Yeah. And it even does the spawn in that Pitfall Harry does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so,
wow, that jump is shit. Yeah.
This is where I'm going to next. I suppose the other big difference is, okay, so going back to the Atari 2600 version of Pitfall, because that's my frame of reference, like, the controls weren't great, but that's more because we're talking about the Atari 2600 joystick. I know that that thing is iconic, like probably the first iconic control device of video gaming. The thing is, and I've always felt this, it's not that great of a control device. Like, it kind of suffers from arthritis. Very stiff. And yeah, Pitfall for the Atari 2600 is also pretty stiff. It's not unplayable or anything, but Colbert definitely is in that designation as well. It's just this controls so much more poorly. And the thing is, I can't tell if that's a result of it being from the C64. Like, we've featured a number of these old computer games. And, creaky joints is something to be expected at this point. But, like, it's perhaps kind of hard to convey just how stiff and gangly this piece of shit is. It's got absolutely...
You can't jump forward unless you're already walking.
Yeah. It's one of those, and, it was much smoother with Pitfall Harry. Like, and also like jumping off of ladders. For some reason, you can't jump smoothly off of ladders either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the play control is so much worse. And this game, this game will do other bad things. I mean, as far as like the crocodiles here, okay. In fairness to Cuthbert here, the crocodiles were shit in Pitfall as well. I never liked jumping on the crocs in that game because it was always finicky. It's finicky here, it's finicky there.
How the hell did you get off the rope?
That's where this game kind of falls apart, more so, because while I can excuse the crocs because the source material was bad, jumping off of ropes was fairly easy in Pitfall.
Mm-hmm.
Another problem is the pits, the gaping chasms that open up in some of the fields. They don't operate like they do in Pitfall. In Pitfall, like when you approach them, they'll swallow up. The timing is just much better. The scorpions are also tricky. It's like not as bad as the crocs, and this is a thing that was done in Pitfall as well. Like, it's a non-linear sequence of screens. I'm not sure if it's as many as Pitfall has, 255. Though I think the one thing that Cuthbert is doing better than Pitfall is keeping track of your screens. Because if you pay attention to the upper right corner of the HUD, you will note a number above the timer. That was not in Pitfall. It's got the Pitfall timer. Don't know if you got as much time as you do in Pitfall. It's like Pitfall, you have a run of like 20 minutes to get all the treasure.
This one, the timer counts up.
Yeah.
So I don't know like where the end is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't like because I can't stay alive long enough to find out.
Yeah, if you're a crazy enough motherfucker to get to the end of this timer, oh boy.
I mean, in fairness, you could just stand around.
Fair.
But I wasn't gonna stand around for 20 plus minutes to find this bit of minutia out.
Indeed.
Like, point is that's the other number, that is the screen you're on. Like Petty, you're on screen 3 right now, so it keeps track of the screen you're on, as opposed to Pitfall where it will not tell you what screen you're on. This is actually handy because in both games screens look similar, don't they? So point actually goes to Cuthbert here for actually keeping track of the screen you're on. It's something that should have been in Pitfall. Because I don't know if that was a memory constraint on the 2600 or whatever, but if it's something that they could have done, they should have done in Pitfall. I always hated that game. So minor credit to Cuthbert here. Now, going to perhaps the biggest issue of this game, other than it being absolutely horrific to control, and that is framing and context here, because once again, we've covered ancient computer games that ape certain games, but here's the thing: usually those were arcade games. You know, like Road Frog or whatever it was. The game that was ripping off Frogger. You know, or Jumpman, which was drawing inspiration from Donkey Kong. Those are arcade games. I don't think we've come up on anything that's specifically like ripped off Pac-Man, like or Asteroids. But you know, like these are games that were cloned a lot back in the day. Pitfall, influential, but I can't think of too many rip-offs. There's a reason for that. Because Pitfall wasn't a arcade game, or at least like initially. Like there is an arcade version of Pitfall 2, but that's a reverse situation. That's the sequel. Pitfall was born on consoles, or specifically the Atari 2600, and soon proliferated to a number of platforms. So, my overall point here is you didn't have to look far for the original source. And, while the Atari 2600 version was the original, the other versions are comparable to that version. It's not like potentially with the arcade games, which might have had to be cut down in some capacity. Now, in the case of Cuthbert in the Jungle, the original platforms that this thing showed up on are very obscure. The TRS-80 color computer, or the Coco, and the Dragon 32. Like, these are some microcomputer deep cuts, which is probably why Pixel Games picked the Commodore 64 version to be represented here. And once again, it's only the Commodore 64. We don't got the original versions contained. I don't think I've actually mentioned it on the show before, but we are actually engaged in a first of its kind on this program interview with Pixel Games UK. In that they agreed to an interview, but an email interview. I have sent email questions to them. I am waiting for a response on that. I have asked, why do you pick a specific version of a game? What's the thought process here? Because I'm very interested to know. Like, why have you picked... here I can surmise why they have picked the Commodore 64 version of Cuthbert. Because, the Commodore 64 is a computer people know. The Coco... I suppose, you might have to be pretty deep into the scene, but, I've heard of the TRS-80 color computer under the Coco name. Or abbreviation, if you will. Dragon 32 I've never heard of. And clearly I am a person that knows platforms and, shit like that. It's kind of the job here. Anyway. Now, as far as the modern context goes, so... where do I stand on Cuthbert in the Jungle? Well, obviously we're being pretty blatant on how we feel about the game. It's like, it's a ripoff and a poor substitute for Pitfall. That kind of gets to the rub here. The then and now situation. Because, okay, Commodore 64, you could absolutely get Pitfall on the platform. Not sure about the other platforms. Like, if you're just rocking the Dragon 32, Cuthbert might have been your only option here. And I'm willing to bet that the prices were comparable between the two.
Especially if they came out on tape.
Yeah. Pitfall was very popular. But getting to the now situation, here's the issue. There's not a good, easy way to play Pitfall on a modern system.
Well, specifically C64 Pitfall.
Yeah, but even Atari 2600 Pitfall is kind of inaccessible. Like,
I thought it was in the Atari pack thing.
No, it's not an Atari 50. That's all Atari games. This is an Activision. Pitfall is an Activision.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Activision game you think of during this period.
Mm-hmm. That's why I kind of thought they, would have seen about getting it.
Maybe that was something that, well, no, like, or at least not on Digital Eclipse's end, because we've talked about Atari 50 multiple times on our show.
Fair.
Like, I don't know if Atari ever tried to secure that, but like, I could absolutely believe this is a case of this being so beneath Activision's notice that they didn't even entertain discussions. Because this has happened. Because remember, Activision Blizzard is is one of the biggest biggest gaming companies out there.
Well, like, they haven't done anything with the Pitfall IP in, 20 years?
Shorter amount of time than you might think. Like, I think about 2015, they put out, like, a mobile version of, a modern version of Pitfall on mobile devices. Didn't do any business, pretty quickly canceled, shut down. But and before that, there was a Pitfall collectathon platformer called The Last Expedition on the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. And that got a Wii version that was called a different thing that I don't remember right now. That was the time previous. Like, Activision has revisited the Pitfall IP occasionally throughout its history. But it's been a while since we've seen, like, an Activision anthology of Atari 2600 games. They put one of those out for, like, the PlayStation, I think the PlayStation 2.
Something like that, yeah.
Like, Activision isn't as into releasing its classic games as Atari is, or other companies. It's unfortunate. So the ultimate point here is, this is a poor substitute for Pitfall, but it's kind of what you have to work with on Steam. Because as far as I know, there is no Atari, there is no Activision anthology on Steam. Let me just make sure that is indeed the case. There is no there's no Activision anthology on Steam. They have they have done they've done collections in the past. It's just once again, they probably figure it being beneath their notice to do an Activision anthology for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Nintendo Switch and Steam and all that. I'm like, Maybe that is something that will change should Microsoft actually get their hands on Activision Blizzard. Far from certain at this point.
The world may never know.
So, like I said, this is actually a far more complicated recommendation or not recommendation than I first anticipated. Because the game is not, it's not totally unplayable like some other games we featured from that Pixel Games UK has rescued. But given the choice between this and Pitfall, it's Pitfall every day of the week, twice on Sunday. But Pitfall is not available on the platform. So if you're really, really jonesing for that Pitfall fix and want an easy option, this will kind of do in a pinch. Once again, there's no getting around the utterly slippery controls. But it's also the pricing. This game costs about $3, $2.99, which is probably what it would have. Well, it would have gone for a little more back in the day. I'm willing to bet that this is one of those things that got released on tape for about £8, or which does equate to about $16. But still, like, cassette games were really cheap, even adjusted for inflation. So there's not that much of a price disparity. Granted, I am speculating here because there's not a ton of release information on this. Suppose I could look over that Moby. But it's like I'm not that invested in getting all the minute details of Cuthbert in the Jungle's release history right. My point is, it's here for $3. Generally not recommended unless you're really, really looking for a Pitfall fix.
Right.
Because, like I said, this is what I was talking about earlier. Because Pitfall was hugely influential, but a direct ripoff, this is rather rare when I think about it. Because Pitfall is one of the great keystones of platform. Before Mario Brothers and Ghouls and Ghosts, there was Pitfall. Yeah, it's like right after Donkey Kong and right before the platforming games of 1984. Super Mario Brothers, Pac-Land, and Ghouls and Ghosts. Yeah, all of those are contemporaneous with each other. Which is why Pac-Land uses a button configuration to move. Right. Anyway, Petty, is there anything you wish to add to Cuthbert in the Jungle here?
I think I'm good.
Yeah. I guess another point in Cuthbert in the Jungle is, at least from what I can tell in-game, and the artwork displayed on Steam, it's not displaying overt racism.
That's good.
Yeah, because looking at you, Jungle Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Pitfall. The original Pitfall didn't have this problem either, but
I mean, also cursed shout out to Custer's Revenge.
Yeah, I'm like, but I'm just donating what I've seen, in game and
right.
Some of the cover art. That does not preclude this from engaging casual racism, because it is a game from 1984 and it's taking place in the goddamn jungle.
Yep. We also don't have any of the manual stuff.
Yeah. So, once again, there are limits to our inclination towards research.
Yeah. Because I guess for those of you who don't know, a lot of times manuals had the story of the game, especially back in this era. So
Yeah.
without us having that to look through, there could have been some very, very racist things in there, but we have no way of knowing.
As it is, we only just get the unfortunate implications. And that it's like I'm not sure if Pitfall Harry was ever supposed to be like as clear inspiration, Indiana Jones and an archaeologist, or if he was just more of a generic explorer. But it's still going to foreign civilizations and stealing their shit. Granted, in Pitfall, and for Colbert here, it's much more abstract.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're taking a generic gold or silver bar or a generic diamond ring. Like I said, it's more a perhaps unfortunate implication that you might be stealing some precious metals from some unfortunate South American civilization. It's one of those things about Indiana Jones that hasn't aged the best. Oh God.
Colonialism here.
Yeah, well, it's not a joke. It's a very real thing.
Fair, yeah. Looks over at the British museums, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like that opening sequence in Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of hits differently today, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh God, damn.
Yeah. But as far as Colbert in the Jungle, I'm not even sure what Colbert is, other than some, I don't know, British guy? Like
human? Question mark?
Well, I mean, he's definitely human, like according to his artwork on the Steam page.
It looks like he's supposed to be a child?
I don't know. He looks like he's Waldo's second cousin, once removed.
Once removed with a fucking crowbar.
Yeah. So, I don't know why he's looking through the jungle. Maybe he just wants treasure. Like the Steam marketing materials here don't give us. It gives us the history of the game, but does not give the context of Colbert.
Mm.
Like, who the fuck is Colbert? Why is he so many games?
And this would probably be something that will be at least helped with manual if there is one.
There probably is one, but once again, this is a fairly obscure release.
Yeah, and I'm not interested enough to go Googling it.
Yeah, no, that's Twitter. I had Moby Games. Oops. Seem to have lost Moby Games. I might have closed that. Anyway, it's not important. Really? There it is. Yeah, it's like I'm looking Colbert in the Jungle on Moby Games, and they don't have a record of this.
Damn.
Yeah.
So either it doesn't exist or nobody bothered to archive the manual and stuff?
That one. Clearly the game exists.
Well, I mean, the manual and stuff. It could have just been the game on a cassette, for all we know.
Well, it's like I've got they don't even have an entry here.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have talked a surprisingly long time about this game. So we should probably wrap it up here. And with that in mind, be sure to tune in after the break as Petty Fan will be giving his impressions of Trail of Ayash.